Sometimes Jesus seemed to sabotage his own ministry. Sometimes he seemed to actively work against his success. And this is one of those times. Now understand, I'm no expert in church marketing, but if I were looking to grow my congregation, I probably wouldn't insist on folks hating their parents and siblings if they want to become church members. This morning's text is a difficult one to make sense of. After all, hate is such a strong word. And even though the temptation may be to move along to something more comforting, I think it might be worth our while to spend a little time with it. Did he really say it? Did he really tell us to hate our parents? And if he did he really mean it? After all, one of the 10 Commandments says that we should, in fact, honor our parents and not hate them. And Jesus claimed not to have come to abolish the law and prophets. When the word hate is used in Luke's gospel, there are certainly some cases where it refers to feelings of hostility, but not always. Sometimes it's used when contrasting two things. Take, for example, the time he talks about choosing between serving God and serving wealth. He says we can't serve two masters because if we do, we will hate one and love the other. In this case, choosing to follow one master doesn't actually require us to hate another master. Here Jesus is contrasting God and wealth and saying there's no room for straddling the fence. A choice must be made between one or the other. In this morning's text, he's saying the same thing. He's not saying we need to despise our biological family. Rather, if we want to be his disciple, it may mean making some difficult choices. Maybe even the choice between Jesus and one's family. So it's best to think seriously about this choice, he tells the crowd, before jumping on the discipleship bandwagon. Someone from El Salvador recalled the night when his small village was under bombardment during their war. He had refused to fight, but had joined the Red Cross, part of which was his commitment to answer whenever the siren would sound. During the bombardment, the siren sounded, and he described how difficult it was to force his way out of the house with his spouse and his children holding on, begging him not to go, but to stay with them instead. He did not hate them in the angry sense, but he did have to make a choice against the ones he loved the most. When you look at this morning's text in your Bible, the title of the section may say, "The Cost of Discipleship." But is it really a cost? Or is it a choice? This call to discipleship is radical, implying that those who follow Jesus are not going to be making decisions based on what's best for me or even what's best for our marriage or family or children. Decisions, for example, like taking up residence in what some may consider an unsafe and undesirable neighborhood. When I arrived at this church almost 23 years ago, the people who made up the congregation were very different from those who make it up today. I frequently heard reference to the church's neighborhood as a bad neighborhood, a dangerous one. They would often express concern for my safety during office hours in which I was alone. those people no longer attend this church. They attend churches in better neighborhoods now, or they don't attend church at all. They made a choice, and that choice did not include attending this church. They saw the neighborhood as a threat to their safety and their possessions instead of as an opportunity for discipleship. Unfortunately for them, they are missing out on what it's like to be in relationship with people from the margins. Over the years, I've heard folks say to me, "Thanks for all you do for the community." In every case, they were talking about the LGBTQ community of Waco. It's nice to know our church is making a positive impact on Waco's queer community. But recently, I was stopped in my tracks to hear the very same words coming out of the mouth of a homeless person who was clearly not referring to members of the LGBTQ community. When he said, "Thanks for all you do for the community," I felt as if we had finally arrived. We had broken through the queer church image and had entered the follower of Jesus church image. "Thank you for all you do for the community," he said, and as he walked off, adding, "I wish other churches did the same." And it all happens when we make a choice. A choice between attending a church in a nice neighborhood where you don't have to worry about being accosted by someone who's hungry, or attending a church in a marginalized neighborhood where hunger is the norm. A choice between attending a church that makes you feel comfortable or attending a church that offers you an opportunity to serve others. Our text opens up with the words, "Now large crowds were traveling with Jesus." And in Will Willimon's sermon from this text, with tongue-in-cheek, he says, though Luke doesn't have this verse, I'm sure he meant to, and the crowds got a lot smaller after this sermon. Such has been my experience. The crowd has gotten a lot smaller since we have begun to engage and serve our neighborhood. So it seems that Jesus is telling the crowds in this morning's text to make a choice. But count the cost before making that choice, because it won't be all beatitudes and healing miracles and a round of fishes and loaves for everyone who's hungry. It may mean choosing between enjoying the comfort of your possessions and sharing those possessions with others. It may mean choosing between the freedom that privilege affords you and the self-denial that comes with taking up your cross. It may even mean choosing to redefine what family means for you, whether it's the people with whom you share the most DNA, or it's the folks with whom you share your deepest needs and joys. When Moses decided it was time to retire at the ripe old age of 120, he gathered the people of Israel, and after giving a really long sermon, he concluded with the words, "I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life." Jesus is telling us to also make a choice, but to give it lots of thought before choosing. Because if we choose to follow Jesus, there will be lots of disappointment and setbacks, but there will also be freedom and joy and life. the joy that comes in serving others, ironically, the freedom that comes in self-denial, and the fullness of life that comes with following Christ. So stop straddling the fence, he says. It's time to make a choice. But when you do, choose well. Amen.